I've done now is taken off the breather and the throttle body, unplugged the mass airflow sensor, unplugged, I don't know, air temperature sensor or something there. There's one bolt down here that holds on the intake part of it here. Comes around, a couple of bolts. There's a clamp here, 4 bolts, no special tools needed. A little patience with these plugs. They're kind of hard, kind of stuck sometimes, but just be patient with them. They got little squeeze nails on the side, both of them. And sometimes you got to gently pry them with a screwdriver or something to get them off. Just be patient with them. Don't break them. Start breaking stuff, you're really going to start costing yourself a lot of money on these cars. So next thing I'm going to try to do is probably take off this front cover. Looks like it has a hose going to it. I'm going to start taking this stuff off here. Of course, I've taken off the cover, taken off a couple of brackets, 10mm bolts, taken off some nuts here, started to remove some of this stuff. You just got to be patient, be organized. I keep all my bolts in a little divider here, keep them all separated, take them off in order. Here's the throttle body, brackets that hold on the top deal, no special tools needed. I do have a good set of tools. Not a mechanic, but I do a lot of my own DIY stuff, so this is not impossible to do. You just have to be patient and give yourself plenty of time. You start putting time restraints on yourself, it makes this stuff a lot more stressful and a lot harder to do. So just give yourself plenty of time and do it step by step, stay organized. It's shaking. I'm using my cell phone and it's freaking windy. I popped this cover off carefully with a pick. Let me show you what I'm using. You will need a little pick like this. You need to get a little pick set. It's real handy on these kind of jobs. Also a very handy tool is a good flashlight. You have to have good lighting, and I use a little screwdriver like this. So pop this cover off and realize we got the wires going down into the coil packs, ignition coil packs, 4 on each side. So I'm gonna pop this little square deal out here, little square deal out back here, and then I'm gonna take this off and unhook it from the coil packs. I'm gonna try to take this off as an assembly. The wires run around here, pop these 2 deals off here, and hopefully I can get this off as an assembly. It looks like there's a wire coming out here, but again, I just popped this off to see what was going on with it and come to the conclusion that it's going to have to come off as an assembly. So let me see if I can get it off. Okay, I got the cover off so that I can unplug it here. I'll figure that out in a second. It looks like this pulls out or something. So something I wanted to that just kind of pulls, slides straight out, and then I think it'll unplug. Right out. Once you pull that metal piece back, it's kind of a tight little fit here. Alright, I got that one unplugged. It's your coil pack. Underneath there is your spark plugs. It wouldn't be a bad time to do that. I didn't get spark plugs, so I'm probably not going to do it right now. I may pull one and look at them, but did want to mention when you take this off, it has these little rubber grommets down there. You drop those down in the engine compartment. They're aluminum, so your magnets won't work on them. I do keep a little magnet here, so telescopic magnet, but as you see, it doesn't work on a lot of stuff on this car because it's aluminum. So be real careful just taking those off. 2 number 10s, take it off, slide straight back. It goes around the wires at the top, but it is slotted, so it'll slide right off. Okay, something else I wanted to mention. This car is a 2003. It's a 540i. It is a V8. Okay, obviously. So if you're doing this on a inline 6, this is the wrong car. You need to go another V8. But I did want to mention that I have spoke to mechanics who work on cars that are a little older. This is an 03, and we're in 2014. It's January 2014. So it's about 11 years old. These wires are still okay. They're not all brittle. But I've spoke to mechanics who have done jobs like this. When you start moving these wires on older cars, they can start to crack and break, and then you've got wires touching wires, and then you're into a very expensive wire harness job. So let's don't move these wires any further than we absolutely have to. These wires are still in good good shape, but you know, they're under the hood. They get hot and cold, hot and cold. They will get brittle, they will break, and you will have a very expensive headache, okay? So we're not going to move these any further than we have to. I just want to point out too that there is a wire on this one. It comes off the side of it here. Has a little number 10 bolt there, looks like a ground, just on that one. So before I can take this assembly off, I will take that off. I'll probably put that nut right back on so that I don't lose it. Again, we're going to try to take this off. I'm going to unplug all this stuff, and I'm going to try to move these wires absolutely as little as possible. Okay, it looks like this assembly comes out with this fuel rail. This assembly, this fuel rail comes out, injectors, everything come out with it. So what I want to point out that I'm fixing to do is take a compressed air blower, and I'm going to blow all this out real good. I don't want to get a bunch of dirt down in my injector holes. So, and if I would have known I was going to do that, I'd probably bought injector O-rings. Sunday, they're closed. I'm probably just going to check these, clean them off real good, and reuse them. But so add that to your list. If you're going to do the intake, you need the throttle body gasket, front cover gasket, intake gaskets, should be 4 of them. There's 2 holes in each one. I've already done my CCV on the back, my ventilation, crankcase ventilation valve. It's very hard to do on the car. Not very hard, but it's a lot harder. If you haven't done that, order it. I think it's $100 or so. It makes a big difference. When I first got this car, it was running horrible. Burning oil, smoking, running rough. Replace that, solved everything. So it's a very important piece to this way this engine runs. So do it if you haven't done it. I've already done it. But again, I'm going to blow this out real good to keep dirt and crap from getting down in my injector holes. Okay, I just wanted to mention that this plug right here is a real pain in the ass. You got to pry these 2 deals back right here. I'm sorry if there's a glare out here in the sun. Pry these 2 deals back here. There's little keepers here, and this thing's got an O-ring or some sort of gasket, so it's a real bitch to get out of there, but it does come out. This plug's easy if you know how to get it off. You just push in on this, don't pull this wiring out. Plug it like that, you push in, carefully take it off, it's mounted in rubber, okay? So there's the plugs, you gotta do it on both sides. And again, I have to take off the little ground wire that's attached to it, and I'm gonna unplug all of these on this side. I'm gonna try to take this all off as one assembly. Once I get it off, I'll show it. Okay, so now, this hose had to come off right here. I don't know if you can see that there in the camera. Just a rubber deal. It was stuck pretty good. I actually had to use my pick. I had to stick it up underneath there, go around it here, break it all loose. It's got 3 little ribs on there. It's a real bitch. But if you try to work that thing out of there, it's kind of worked into the rails and stuff there. If you try to work it out of there, it's pretty brittle. It's going to break. So I'm going to leave mine right there, take it up, get up with it, okay? And I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing once I get it loose, because there is a wire harness there. Like I said, I'm trying not to move it too much. So I'm going to set it up enough to maybe get to the bolts and get the intake out of there. I did have to release a fuel line here. It was under a little bit of pressure. Wasn't that big of a deal. I did have to push these 2 together. There is a black deal here. Once you push these 2 together, you push this in, and it releases, and you can separate them. Squirts a little bit of fuel, not too bad. Again, I've unplugged all of my coil packs and 1 ground strap right there. So I've got this all pretty much loose. You got to pry up on a little bit. The injectors are stuck in. They got little O-rings, they're stuck down in there. But I've got it all pretty much loose. So now I'm gonna see if I can get it out. Okay, I jumped ahead a little bit here because I wasn't sure what all I needed to take off here. I'm trying to get to the end of the big wire harness. What I've done is I've basically taken off the cover on this left side over here, on the right side actually. Cover, a squeeze clamp here comes out. This piece works its way out. You got to release these 3. This here turns about a half. Once you get this out of the way, this turns about a half a turn. The whole duct comes out of there. Okay. That's basically just a duct, keep the computer and stuff like that cool. But what I did is I took all that off. There's little clippies that go in this back panel here. You turn them half a turn, come out. There's one behind that duct over there, so I didn't take this piece all the way out. Okay, so now got in here. Then there was a cover here, a white cover, 4 bolts, 2 little clippies back here, took it off. Plug's coming here. I'm going to unplug a couple of these, feed it out right here so that I can go ahead and set this out of my way instead of working around it. Again, I'm trying not to move the wires, I'm not bending them back and forth. I'm just basically trying to take it off, leave the wires kind of seated where they want to seat, lay the way they want to lay, and I'm going to set it out somewhere safe. I don't want to damage my injectors or the wiring. And actually, I may just set it over to the side right here, because there's some wires here that go down and they disappear into the abyss on the bottom of this car, and I don't want to chase them down. They go up in here, so instead of chasing those down, I may leave those two go down there plugged in. I've unplugged all the ones that go to this side. Maybe I'll just set it right over here to the side so that I can get to my stupid intake. Okay? So. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention, that if you're going to start messing with all these plugs up there, you want to put the negative side of the battery right here. Tuck it away safely. That way you don't fry nothing. Just go ahead and unplug it. Only the negative side, don't mess with the positive. Of course, on these, when you hook on a battery up, you need to hook positive up first, negative up last. When you're unhooking it, negative off first, positive off last. Okay guys, we've kind of moved out of DIY territory. This isn't something you'd want to do in your driveway. If you're not real handy with tools and done a lot of mechanic work, you may want to farm this out. All I had was a leak right here. If I could go back, I probably wouldn't do all this. Car only ran rough, idled rough when it was cold, and it started running good, but I decided to go ahead and do the intake while I was here. While it's off, I'm going to check the valley pan gasket there. I've got this kind of just gently bungee corded out of the way. These are your injectors. You got to be real careful with all of them. If you are going to do this, you probably ought to replace these O-rings. I'm just going to clean them up real good. I don't have them. It's Sunday. So I'm ready now to take off the intake. The reason I didn't take this off all the way is there's a couple of wires that disappear down underneath the front of the engine, and there's actually one disappears underneath the back over there. And this thing ain't on a lift, so it's not real easy for me to get under it. So as of right now, it's out of the way enough. I was very careful not to mess up any wires or anything. Gently lifted it up out of the way. And you just got to be real careful with all of this stuff. It's, you know, as of right now, this car's 10, 11 years old. Wires underneath the hood compartment get brittle, so I'm very careful with all that. I'm going to move forward though, so here we go. Okay, I have the intake off. This is where the intake gaskets go. There's 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. When I lifted it up, there's a tube here that connects to the back crankcase ventilation valve. Of course, I had to take this off here. This is taking a long time. I'm not recording everything I'm doing, but it's not an easy job. These hoses are brittle. You got to be careful. All this has to be done slow and careful. Once I broke all these, kind of just lifted it up, got it loose. I noticed there was this hose. If you're not careful, there's a rubber boot here that you can destroy. So it just lift up the intake, slide it back, comes loose. There's a spring, kind of stays on there, comes off. Not sure what that is, but I'll figure it out. That's where that's the pan gasket that everybody talks about on these cars. Unfortunately, to get it off, you got water pipes right over this row of bolts. So you got to take off. This is your water pump, fan clutch. All this has to come off. It's a little more involved. It looks like I do have some wetness in there, but it's pretty wet up here. It looks like it's probably coming from up top. So I'm gonna vacuum it out a little bit with my shop vac, blow it off, wipe it down, clean it up, see where it's coming from. See, I may end up having to go ahead doing this pan gasket. The new one is metal, I think. That one's plastic. I may take a look at it though. I didn't realize it was gonna be this hard to get to this point. It seems like I'm well over halfway into this pan valley, so I may have to put this off another day or so. But like I said, we have left DIY behind us. But if for some reason, hey man, you don't have the money to do this, you think you can handle this job, it can be done with patience, and don't put no time limitations on yourself. I've been at it for a couple hours just to get to this point, so it can be done. Just take your time. Don't destroy hoses and wires and stuff, because that'll just cost you more money and set you back further. But it's a little bit of a job. Okay, I have put back on the cover. I hadn't bolted it up yet. It's a little tricky getting that pipe hooked back up. You just got to kind of put it in and line it up. I had my flashlight here. Made sure I got a good connection here. Got it in. You can slide it left and right. Make sure your intake gaskets are still seated good. I went ahead and cleaned this up. The front, I guess I call it a front cover. Replace the gasket there. I'm going to do my throttle body gasket also. I decided not to do the pan gasket. It looked like it was coming up from maybe the intake. The leak was up higher, you know, so I cleaned it up real good, put it back on. So we're going back on now. I'm going to start putting bolts on, connecting. Of course, when you tighten up your intake, I usually start in the middle, work my way out, kind of in a crisscross pattern. You don't want to start here and zip all the way around. It's just not the best way to do stuff when there's rubber gaskets involved. I'm going to torque it to about tight. I'm not going to go look up torque specs and stuff. I'm just going to tighten it up till it feels nice and snug. Most of those bolts you can get to even with all this on. So I may come back in a week or two and re-snug them just a little bit. You don't want to over tighten them. It is rubber gaskets. I've done enough of these type things to know about where it needs to be. If you want to look up torque specs, go ahead, be my guest. I'm not gonna. This job's kicking my ass and I'm ready to be done. So I'm gonna start putting it back together, and I'll continue to record and show y'all what I do as I go. I went ahead and took the last clip out of that thing up there. Turned about halfway, it comes out. Took that out of my way because I needed to go back to hook onto that pipe that's underneath there. So I kind of got to hook back a little further and come back and then set it down on the bolts. It was a little tricky, but it can be done. I'm doing this by myself. I don't got no help or anything. It's taking me a little longer because I have to keep washing my hands to record. I don't want to get my phone dirty. I'm just using my iPhone. But as we go, I'll show you what I'm doing as I go. Okay, I'm back together. Sorry I didn't take a little more video of it. I just running out of daylight, so I had to hurry up, get it all put back together. I haven't actually test started it yet. The only problem I was really having was a little bit of a erratic idle up and down. You know, the RPMs were jumping up and down. When it was cold outside, upon startup, after a couple minutes it would go away. It's a great running vehicle, has about 130 on it. 130,000 miles on it. All I basically did today was change out those 4 intake plenum gaskets. That's the front cover, throttle body. Had I known it was going to be this much work, I probably would have gone ahead and done the valley pan gasket, which we were right there. It would have been a little more work. I'd have had to take the water pump loose, drain the system, pull the pipes that go across there out. Instead, all I did was tighten up the bolts a little bit around the pan down in the valley. Had to use a wrench on some of them. To get all this out, I did have to disconnect the fuel line. Really didn't have any pressure on it. I wasn't worried about it too much. Came right out, dripped a little bit. No big deal. I do have the battery unhooked still. It's the last thing I got left to do. I didn't do the spark plugs because I didn't have time to leave and go get them. But I probably will do plugs later. I don't know when the last time they've been done. I didn't do them. I've had the car for a little over a year. I've done a lot of stuff to it. But I'm going to put that pan gasket off down there in the valley as long as I can, because that was a beast of a job. Again, it's not really a DIY type deal in your driveway unless you got a real good set of tools and you've done a lot of mechanic work. Otherwise, I would definitely farm this puppy out. Not saying that a mechanic wouldn't screw something up, because there's a lot of wires and stuff and you have to be real careful. I took a lot of pictures and rerouted them all right back where they went. Some mechanics, I mean, you need to go to a specific BMW mechanic that can do this. Somebody that works on German cars and stuff. Or do it yourself. just do a little preparation, and like I said, take your time. Don't put any time restraints on yourself. If this is your daily driver, that's a lot of stress. So if you don't have something else to drive while you have this apart, maybe you shouldn't attempt it. Okay, that's it. Thanks.